September 1939. Hitler has just invaded Poland from the west with 1.5 million soldiers. But there's a problem. To reach Warsaw from the east, the Nazis need to cross one specific bridge, one river, one bottleneck, and standing between them and that bridge, 720 men against 40,000, with tanks, aircraft, artillery, the full weight of the German war machine. This is the story of the Battle of Wizna, the battle historians call Poland's Thermopylae, and the man who swore on his honour that he would die before he surrendered. To understand what happened at Wizna, you need to understand how catastrophic September 1939 was for Poland. On September 1st, Germany invaded from the west, 1.5 million soldiers, 2,000 tanks. They called it Blitzkrieg, Lightning War, and it was living up to its name. But here's what most people don't know. 16 days later, September 17th, the Soviet Union invaded from the east. Under a secret deal with Hitler, Stalin sent in another 600,000 soldiers. Poland was being crushed from both sides simultaneously. In the chaos, a German armoured corps needed to punch through northeastern Poland. Their target, Warsaw. Their route, a narrow strip of land between the Naro River and the Bibza marshes. The only crossing point, a small town called Wizna, and whoever held Wizna controlled the entire German advance in that sector. The Polish High Command knew this, so they sent someone to hold it. Captain Władysław Raginis. He was 31 years old. He had just recovered from injuries. He volunteered for this assignment, knowing full well what it meant. Before he left, he made a promise to his commanding officer. He would not surrender, no matter what. Now let's talk about what Raginis actually had to work with. 720 soldiers. That's it. They had a handful of artillery pieces, some anti-tank guns, not many, machine gun nests dug into the riverbank, a network of small concrete bunkers, some still being built when the Germans arrived. No air support. The Polish Air Force had already been devastated. No tank backup. Polish armour was desperately needed elsewhere. No reinforcements were coming. What they did have was the terrain. The marshes on either side made a frontal assault the only realistic option. The Germans couldn't flank them. The ground would swallow their tanks whole. So Raginis did the only thing he could do. He put his men in the strongest positions possible, told them what was coming, and waited. On September 7th, 1939, 6 days into the war, the Germans arrived. General Heinz Guderian himself, one of the architects of Blitzkrieg, the man who had helped design the entire German armoured doctrine. He looked at what was in front of him and ordered his force forward. 40,000 soldiers, 350 tanks, artillery, air support, versus 720 men in bunkers by a river. This should have been over in an hour. It wasn't over in an hour. The first German assault hit the Polish lines and was stopped cold. Machine gun fire from the bunkers cut through the advancing infantry. The narrow front meant the Germans couldn't bring their numerical advantage to bear. They were funneling thousands of men into a kill zone that 720 defenders had spent days preparing. German tanks pushed forward. The Polish anti-tank guns opened up. Several tanks were destroyed before they could cross. Guderian, a man who had never really been stopped before, ordered heavier artillery. He called in airstrikes. The bunkers took direct hits. Some were destroyed, Polish soldiers died, and the line held. Night fell on September 7th. The Germans had expected to be through Wizna and advancing toward Warsaw by noon. They weren't even across the river. Raginis walked the defensive line that night, checking on his men. Some of his bunkers had been hit. Ammunition was running low already. He knew the morning would bring something worse. He didn't tell his men to retreat. He reminded them of something instead. Every hour they held, every single hour, was one more hour for Polish civilians to evacuate. One more hour for the Polish army to reorganize somewhere else. One more hour that mattered. They went back to their positions. Day 2 began, September 8th. The Germans came back harder. More artillery, more tanks, continuous air bombardment. Guderian had apparently decided that this embarrassment needed to end immediately. Bunker after bunker was destroyed. Polish casualties mounted. Men who had survived the first day were dying now, not from infantry assaults but from being buried alive when artillery shells collapsed their concrete shelters. The defenders were running out of everything: ammunition, food, water, men, but still they fired. A German force managed to find a way through the marshes on the flank, a crossing that the map said didn't exist. A small group of German infantry got behind the Polish line. Even then, the Polish soldiers in the bunkers didn't break. They kept firing forward. By September 9th, the third day, Raginis had perhaps 40 or 50 men still combat effective out of his original 720. The Germans sent a message demanding surrender. Raginis had made a promise. He gathered his remaining men. He told them their duty was done. He released them from their obligation to fight. He ordered the survivors to surrender, to save their lives. Then he walked into the last standing bunker. He pulled out a grenade, and Captain Władysław Raginis kept his promise. He was 31 years old. Let's stop and look at what just happened. 720 Polish soldiers held 40,000 German soldiers for 3 days, a ratio of roughly 55-1. Guderian's entire armoured corps, one of the most powerful fighting forces on Earth in 1939, was delayed by men in concrete bunkers with machine guns and an unbreakable commander. German casualties at Wizna are estimated at between 800 and 1,000 killed and wounded. Think about that. The defenders inflicted more casualties than their entire force. They killed more Germans than there were Poles defending the position. Of the original 720 defenders, only a handful survived. Most died in the bunkers. Some were taken prisoner. Guderian wrote about Wizna in his memoirs. He didn't linger on it, but it's there. A tiny footnote in the diary of one of Germany's greatest generals, a battle he expected to last an hour that lasted 3 days. In Poland, Raginis is remembered as a national hero. The soldiers of Wizna are called the Polish Spartans. Streets, schools, and military units are named after them. In the rest of the world, almost nobody knows this happened. So why does this matter? Why should you care about 720 men who lost a battle 85 years ago? Because of what it proves. It proves that numbers aren't everything. That terrain, preparation, and the will to fight can turn a slaughter into a siege. It proves that even in a war Poland ultimately lost, men found reasons to stand. And it proves that history is full of battles like this. Battles that never made it into your school textbook. Battles where ordinary soldiers did extraordinary things and the world simply moved on and forgot. The bunkers at Wizna still exist. You can visit them today. They're cracked and overgrown, but they're still there, standing just like the men who held them. If you want more stories like this, the battles history forgot, the numbers that don't make sense, the moments that should be famous but aren't, subscribe. I drop one every few days, and I promise you every single one is worth your 10 minutes.